Mermaid Tale by Mysteryismyallure. The fisherman sat on the edge of the small fishing boat, staring out at the endless expanse of the ocean. The sun was setting on the horizon, casting a warm glow over the water. It had been a long day of fishing, and the fisherman was tired and ready to head back to shore. As he prepared to gather up his gear and head home, he noticed a movement in the water nearby. At first, he thought it was just a school of fish, but as he watched, the movement became more distinct and seemed to take on a human-like form. Suddenly, a mermaid emerged from the depths, her long flowing hair and shimmering tail glistening in the fading light. She was a stunning creature, with bright green eyes and skin that seemed to glow with an otherworldly radiance. The fisherman was mesmerized by the mermaid's beauty, and he found himself unable to look away. She seemed to be beckoning to him, inviting him to come closer. Without thinking, the fisherman stood up and stepped towards the edge of the boat, reaching out towards the mermaid. But as he did, she lunged forward and grabbed him, pulling him into the water with a powerful splash. The fisherman struggled against the mermaid's grip, but it was no use. She was too strong, and he was powerless to resist. She dragged him down into the depths of the ocean, her laughter echoing in his ears as he was swallowed up by the darkness. As the fisherman was dragged deeper and deeper into the depths, he realized with horror that he was being taken to the mermaid's lair. He had heard stories of mermaids luring men to their underwater homes, never to be seen again. He knew that he was doomed, and he prayed for a quick death as the mermaid dragged him into the darkness. But death did not come, and instead the fisherman found himself locked in a watery prison, forced to live out the rest of his days as the mermaid's captive. He never returned to the surface again, and his fate was forever shrouded in mystery. Some say that he still haunts the depths of the ocean, forever trapped in the mermaid's lair, a victim of her dark and twisted desires. Mermaids by 1001 Nights. As the sun dipped, beachgoers began packing and heading back to the hellish hot city. But Laura, immersed in the cool gray-green waves of the Atlantic, had no intention of leaving. The ocean was calm, the waves friendly and sky beautiful, dipping through the glittery waves. The heavy problems of her life in the city seemed to float away. Why would she want to go back? She dived under, keeping her eyes open to enjoy the view of the crazy-shaped seaweed, whipping up the waves. So much seaweedy, floatsome and jetsome. It was like swimming in a soup. She was hardly surprised to see them, swimming purposefully among the seaweed. Harvesting? She couldn't tell. She swam closer to one, entranced by its gentle, beautiful face and coral pink hair. They locked eyes, and Laura felt a yearning, as if a dull ache she had always had suddenly became sharp, intense, immediate. If only she could join them. If only she could remain under the sea. She kicked with frustration, coming up for air. "Laura! Laura! Let's go!" Her younger sister, Rhea, was calling from the shore. Rhea had never shared Laura's fondness for water. Laura pretended not to hear and dived under again. It was still there, flitting around among the seaweed. It reached out a hand to Laura, and Laura took it, and she could understand it. You can join us. Stay under the sea with us. But I can't swim like you. I don't have a tail. And Rhea, I wish you can have a tail. And Rhea can come, of course. Laura felt for a minute as if she would drown, but it continued speaking to her. You are doing her a kindness. Why would you leave her behind in a place that you are fleeing? And without you, her elder sister, how would she fare? Bring her with you. The coral pink flushed deep crimson. Laura sputtered up. Come in, Rhea. One last step, she called. Rhea hesitated. Laura knew how she felt. It wasn't the water, but the seaweed she hated, the feeling when they touched her body. But she knew if she humored Laura, Laura would get out and they could leave. And so Rhea splashed through the baby waves and was soon bobbing up and down next to Laura. Come on, it's getting late. We both have work tomorrow. The drive back, we have to shower. Let's dive under this wave, Rhea. Oh. A big wave swelled towards them, and grabbing Rhea's hand, Laura dived in, pulling Rhea with her. As soon as they were submersed, Laura felt joy pouring through her. Joy as her legs bent differently, fused together, and her lungs transformed. Still holding hands, she turned to Rhea. We never have to go back. We'll be under the sea forever, she tried to say, but she couldn't make Rhea understand her. Rhea's eyes were frozen in revulsion, her new tail twitching as seaweed floated by, touching her bare skin. Legacy of a Deep-Sea Mermaid by StrawberrySludge. The little mermaid was a curious creature, always straying farther from her pod than most. She had a desire to explore, and found many odd objects that had offered inspiration and information to her peers. Though she had only found little trinkets that gave her people brief glimpses of the surface world, she dreamed of finding something big that would change history. Feeling around the murky water, she bumped into a large metal box. She gently ran her hands across it, fingering the small mechanical details, trying to understand their purpose. She moved across the box and found a long cylinder. She followed it to the end, stuck her hand on the top, and violently got sucked in by the tube. She tumbled into a small, cramped container. She tried stretching out her arms and tail, but the box had no give. And just as she was wondering if she would be able to get out, the rove began moving upwards. Was this her moment? Was this the time she found something truly remarkable? Something that she would be remembered for by her people? The excitement in her stomach turned to fear and nausea as the rapid changing of the atmospheric pressure took a toll on her little body. Fluids bubbled in her veins and joints, leaking out of her tissues, and they fell apart. The wet tissue paper skin tore at the slightest bump, and there wasn't enough pressure to hold her body together. Her muscles, sinews, and flesh all unraveling in front of her. She was the first of her kind to have her eyes met with sunlight, and the first to have her eyes seared out by it. She was the first to reach the surface, almost the first to reach it alive. And as she was the first to be touched by human hands, both inside and out. Wow, what an ugly little mermaid, the man stated, as his young son pressed his face up against the glass box that encased her. "It's creepy," the boy said. "It doesn't even have eyes." Imagine if they drew them like that in the cartoons. The man laughed. "Can't make a kid's movie out of that." The boy giggled at his father's joke, and they moved on to the next exhibit, quickly replaced by the next curious family, with another nosy kid and the same cruel jokes. She sat in her exhibit, day in and day out, fluorescent lights highlighting every part of her wasted body. Every piece of ruptured flesh and busted cartilage was put on display, giving the world an opportunity to gawk at her and mock her ugly, mutilated corpse. She was the first of her kind to meet this kind of fate, but certainly not the last. What a legacy. But I Love Him by Queenofscots. She had been told it would hurt to become human. "But I love him," she answered. She had been warned that she would feel pain like knife stabbing with every step she took, on feet she would never meant to have. Feet! She, who had always had a fish's tail. "But I love him so very much. I can bear any pain," she pleaded. And she had been warned that it would break her heart, loving this human prince, and that she would regret it. But Ariel would not listen. Those in love never do listen. And so it was done. The sea witch took Ariel's voice from her, gave Ariel human legs, and set her upon land among humans. Before the year had gone, Ariel and her prince had fallen in love and married. Before a second year had gone, Ariel was with child. The kingdom rejoiced, and no one was happier than Ariel, even with the constant pain she was in, even with her secret that no one must know, that she was only human by enchantment. Excitement filled the castle the day Ariel went into labor and brought forth a baby that sent the midwife gasping in fear and running from the room. Ariel heaved herself up and looked at what she had delivered. The baby writhed on the sheets, fishtail flapping weakly, as it tried to breathe air into lungs that had been made to breathe water. Its tiny mermaid mouth gaped open and closed, and its tiny fists waved in the air. Ariel loved it instantly. She was just reaching for it when the room door burst open. The prince, the midwife, and the priest came striding in. "Ariel, my love, what is this? I'm hearing tales from this woman," the prince gestured worriedly to the midwife, "of a deformed demon baby." He reached for the bundle in Ariel's arms and dropped it, shocked and dismayed. And so Ariel found herself locked in a small cell, awaiting trial for witchcraft, adultery, and fornicating with demons. She was heartbroken and terrified. The baby had been burned. Not that it would have lived anyway. She knew almost certainly she would be burned as well. "But I love him," she thought. "Surely if we love each other—" She thought it over and over to herself, right up until the guards came for her, dragging her to the stake on the castle green, and set ablaze the dry wood at her feet. Those in love never. Listen. Cries of the Abyss by Mysteryismyallure. I had always been skeptical of the superstitions that clung to the coastal villages of Sicily. The locals spoke of mermaids, creatures of the deep, lurking just beyond the shore. I laughed it off, attributing their tales to overactive imaginations and centuries-old folklore. As a naval officer stationed on this rugged coast, my concerns were more practical, securing the waters, maintaining the peace, and ensuring the safety of our port. The first time I heard it, the night was silent, except for the whisper of the waves against the sand. A cry, faint and plaintive, like that of a baby, drifted through the air. I stopped, listening intently. The sound seemed to come from the beach, but there were no babies here. It must be the wind, I thought, twisting around the rocks in a cruel imitation of a child's wail. The second night, the cries were louder, more insistent. They tugged at something primal within me, stirring an inexplicable dread. I tried to shake it off, but the sound gnawed at me, pulling me from the safety of my quarters and down to the shoreline. The moon cast an eerie glow over the deserted beach, turning the sand into a landscape of shadows and light. As I approached the water, the cries grew louder still, each one a knife to my nerves. My flashlight cut through the darkness, its beam trembling in my unsteady hand. Then I saw it, a figure, half submerged in the water, its pale skin reflecting the moonlight. It looked human, but something about it was profoundly wrong. Driven by a mix of fear and duty, I moved closer. Suddenly, a cold, slimy hand shot out from the water, clamping around my ankle with unnatural strength. Panic surged through me as I swung the flashlight down, illuminating the horror that held me captive. The creature was a grotesque parody of the mermaid myth. Its upper body was vaguely human, but twisted and deformed, with pallid, scaly skin stretched taut over a skeletal frame. Its eyes were black voids, devoid of any soul, and its mouth filled with rows of needle-sharp teeth, curled into a sinister grin. Below the waist, a serpentine tail writhed and coiled, dragging me inexorably towards the icy depths. Realization struck me with a sickening jolt. This thing had lured me here, using the cries of a baby as bait. My heart pounded in terror as I struggled against its grip, the water rising around my legs. The creature's strength was overwhelming, and its touch was like death itself, cold and clammy. Desperation fueled my struggle. I kicked and thrashed, my hands scrabbling for anything to hold on to. In a frantic burst of strength, I managed to wrench free, falling back onto the sand. The creature hissed, a sound that sent shivers down my spine, before retreating into the black water, its eyes never leaving mine. Gasping for breath, I scrambled to my feet and ran back to the outpost, the haunting cries of the creature still echoing in my ears. I knew then that the old stories were not mere superstition. The coastal waters of Sicily hid dark secrets, horrors that defied comprehension. I warned the others, but my tale was met with skepticism and pitying smiles. They didn't understand. How could they? The cries of the creatures still haunted my nights, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the shore, waiting for the next unwary soul to fall into its deadly embrace. Now, every night, I listen to the wind, dreading the return of that awful, haunting wail. The horror of that encounter has left a mark on my soul, a scar that will never heal. The sea, once a source of peace and beauty, has become a dark and terrible abyss, a place where nightmares dwell, and the cries of the damned echo through the night. Moonrise Bay, deleted author. There's a mythical place called Moonrise Bay, whose whereabouts are still unknown to this day. You walk to the water and wait till you hear the sound of a woman singing soft and clear. The waters ripple, moving closer to shore. Then a woman emerges, whose beauty any man would adore. Like the sirens of ancient Greece, her song draws you near, and you enter the water without the slightest bit of fear. You move closer and place your hands on her soft, naked body. She caresses your hair as if she feels naughty. You can't look away from her piercing blue eyes. At this point you think you're the luckiest of guys. Running your fingers from her neck down her spine, something feels wrong, as if she'd been dripped in slime. As you take a step back to see what you're touching, she grabs you by the throat and whispers, "It's nothing." You frantically struggle and look down to see scales, just as you feel the sharp sting of her nails. As you get weaker from the wound she inflicts, she pulls you down under. Your breathing constricts. Deep underwater to the dark below, you were killed by a mermaid. Unfortunately, no one will ever know. I would like to give a heartfelt thank you to the special friends of the channel for your overwhelming generosity. If you would like to support the channel, the link is below in the description. Also, please send me your stories and poems to duchessofdarkness27@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram at duchess.ofdarkness and Twitter at duchessofdarkn2. I want to thank all my listeners for your kindness, your encouragement, and your support. It means the world to me. Thank you for joining me. Until next time.